How to think, speak, and influence like a pro. Every day, people lose opportunities not because they lack intelligence, ideas, or experience, but because they fail to communicate with clarity and authority. They know what they want to say, yet their words come out scattered. They speak too fast, too softly, or with uncertainty, and when that happens, their message loses power before it ever reaches the listener. This audiobook is about changing that. Influence is not about being the loudest person in the room. It's not about using complex words or dominating conversations. True influence comes from something much quieter and far more powerful: intention. The way you think before you speak, the calmness in your voice, the structure behind your words. These are the traits that make people stop, listen, and trust what you say. Professionals who command respect, leaders, executives, confident communicators, do not speak more than others, they speak better. They pause before answering, they choose words carefully, they stay calm even under pressure, and because of this, their words carry weight. In this audiobook, you will learn how to develop that same presence. You will learn how to organize your thoughts before you speak, so your message is clear and focused. You will discover why calm communication signals strength, not weakness. You will learn how removing small, uncertain words instantly increases your credibility. You will also learn how silence, when used intentionally, can be one of the most powerful tools in communication. This is especially important if English is not your first language. You don't need perfect grammar or advanced vocabulary to sound confident. Clarity beats complexity every time. Simple, structured language delivered with calm authority will always be more influential than complicated speech filled with doubt. This audiobook is not about memorizing scripts, it's about building habits. The habit of thinking before speaking, the habit of structuring your message, the habit of staying calm, honest, and intentional no matter who you're speaking to. By the end of this audiobook, you won't just speak differently, you'll think differently. And when your thinking changes, your influence follows. Let's begin with the foundation of all-powerful communication, learning how to think clearly before you ever open your mouth. Chapter 1. Think before you speak. Most communication problems don't begin with words. They begin with thinking. People often believe that speaking confidently means speaking quickly. They rush to respond, afraid of silence, afraid of appearing unprepared. But the truth is simple. The fastest speakers are rarely the most influential ones. Influence starts before the first word is spoken. It starts in the pause where you organize your thoughts. Thinking before you speak is not hesitation, it is discipline. When you speak without thinking, your message becomes unclear. Ideas overlap. Sentences trail off. You repeat yourself, correct yourself, or add unnecessary details to fill the gap. The listener becomes confused, distracted, or disengaged, not because your idea is weak, but because it was never properly shaped. Clear speech is the result of clear thinking. Before you speak, ask yourself one simple question. What is the main point I want the other person to understand? If you cannot answer this in one sentence, you are not ready to speak yet. That one sentence is your anchor. Everything you say should support it. If a word, example, or explanation does not serve that point, it doesn't belong. This habit alone can transform the way you communicate. Strong communicators do not discover their message while speaking. They decide it beforehand. Even in casual conversations, meetings, or unexpected questions, they take a brief moment to think. That pause, sometimes just 1 or 2 seconds, is where authority is formed. It shows control, it shows confidence, and most importantly, it shows respect for the listener's time.
Many people fear silence because they mistake it for weakness. In reality, silence is a signal that your mind is working. When you pause before you speak, people pay more attention to what comes next. They sense that what you are about to say has weight. Thinking before you speak also prevents emotional reactions from controlling your words. When you react instantly, especially under pressure, your emotions often speak for you. Frustration, fear, or insecurity can leak into your tone and language. A short pause creates distance between emotion and response. It allows logic to take the lead. This is especially powerful in professional environments. Imagine being asked a difficult question in a meeting. One person responds immediately, rambling through half-formed thoughts. Another person pauses, gathers their ideas, and then delivers a clear, structured answer. Who appears more competent? Who earns more trust? The difference is not intelligence, it is preparation in the moment. Thinking before you speak does not mean preparing perfect sentences. It means clarifying your intention. Ask yourself, am I informing, persuading, asking, or deciding? Once you know your purpose, your words naturally become more focused. Another key element of thinking before you speak is filtering. Not every thought deserves to be spoken. Strong communicators are selective. They understand that saying less, but saying it well, creates more impact than saying everything that comes to mind. This is where discipline matters. Your mind may generate multiple ideas at once. Instead of releasing all of them, choose the most important one. Say it clearly, then stop. You can always add more if needed, but clarity is lost once confusion enters the conversation. This habit is especially important for non-native English speakers. When you try to translate thoughts directly from your native language while speaking, clarity often suffers. Thinking first allows you to simplify. You don't need advanced vocabulary. You need clear structure. Simple words arranged intentionally are far more powerful than complex words delivered without direction. Thinking before you speak also improves listening. When you know you will take a moment before responding, you listen more carefully. You stop preparing your reply while the other person is still talking. You focus on understanding their point instead of defending your own. This alone makes conversations more effective and more respectful. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you think before you speak. You stop trying to impress. Instead, you focus on being useful. You aim to contribute clarity, not noise. This mindset change is subtle, but it dramatically increases your influence. Many people speak to prove intelligence. Professionals speak to create understanding. One practical way to train this habit is to practice summarizing. Before responding, mentally summarize your response in one sentence. If that sentence is unclear, keep thinking. You will feel a slight discomfort at first, especially if you are used to speaking quickly. That discomfort is growth. Over time, the pause becomes natural and clarity becomes automatic. Another powerful exercise is reflection after conversations. Ask yourself, was my message clear? Did I know my point before I spoke? Did I say more than necessary? Honest reflection strengthens awareness, and awareness builds control. Thinking before you speak also reduces regret. Many people replay conversations in their minds wishing they had said things differently. Most regret comes from speaking too soon, not too late. When you slow down and choose your words intentionally, you leave fewer things unsaid and fewer things to take back. This skill is not about perfection. You will still make mistakes. Everyone does. But intentional thinkers recover faster. They clarify when needed. They adjust without panic. They stay composed. And composition is power. As you move forward in this audiobook, remember this foundation. Influence begins in silence, before the words, before the voice, before the reaction. Every powerful communicator you admire has mastered this first step, whether consciously or not. From this point on, make it a habit. Pause, think, clarify your point, then speak. In the next chapter, we will build on this foundation by exploring why calm communication, especially under pressure, is one of the strongest signals of authority you can send.
Chapter 2. Speak with calm authority. Many people believe authority comes from volume. They think that speaking louder, faster, or more forcefully will make others listen. In reality, the opposite is true. The most authoritative voices are often the calmest ones in the room. Calm communication signals control over thoughts, emotions, and the situation itself. When your voice is steady and measured, people instinctively trust you more. They sense that you are not reacting, but responding. Calm authority begins with internal control. If your mind is racing, your voice will reveal it. Nervous energy leaks into your tone, speed, and word choice. This is why thinking before you speak, as we discussed in the previous chapter, is essential. When your thoughts are organized, your delivery naturally slows down. You don't rush because you know exactly where you are going. And when you don't rush, your words land with more weight. A calm voice does not mean a weak voice. It means a deliberate one. Strong communicators understand that power is not urgency. Urgency often sounds like insecurity. Calmness, on the other hand, communicates confidence. It tells the listener, I am not threatened by this moment. Even in disagreement, a calm voice shows maturity and emotional intelligence. It keeps conversations productive instead of turning them into battles. One of the most noticeable traits of calm authority is pace. People who speak with authority do not rush their sentences. They allow each idea to breathe. They pause naturally between thoughts. This slower pace gives listeners time to process what is being said and signals that the speaker is comfortable being heard. When you speak too quickly, it feels like you are trying to get approval before someone interrupts you. When you slow down, it feels like you expect attention. Tone plays a critical role here. Calm authority uses a steady, even tone, not monotone, but controlled. Emotional spikes, whether excitement or frustration, should be intentional, not accidental. When your tone stays balanced, people focus on your message instead of your emotion. This is especially important in professional settings, where emotional volatility can undermine credibility, even if your ideas are strong. Breathing is an often overlooked tool for calm communication. Shallow, rapid breathing leads to rushed speech and tension in the voice. Deep, controlled breathing slows the body down and stabilizes your tone. Before speaking, especially in high-pressure moments, take one slow breath. This small action can completely change how your voice sounds and how your message is received. Calm authority is also reflected in word choice. When people feel anxious, they often add unnecessary words to soften their message. Phrases like just, maybe, I think, or I'm not sure, but dilute authority. Calm speakers don't need these buffers. They state their point clearly and respectfully, without apologizing for having an opinion. This doesn't mean being arrogant, it means being direct. Another key aspect of calm authority is emotional restraint. This does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending you don't feel them. It means choosing not to let emotions control your delivery. When you feel frustrated, calm authority allows you to express concern without aggression. When you feel excited, it allows you to share enthusiasm without chaos. Emotional discipline makes your communication predictable and trustworthy. People are drawn to calm communicators because calm feels safe. In uncertain situations, humans naturally look for stability. A calm voice provides that stability. It reassures others that someone is in control. This is why leaders who remain calm during crises are respected, even if they don't have all the answers.
Their calmness creates confidence in others. For non-native English speakers, calm authority is especially powerful. You may worry about pronunciation, grammar, or accent, but when you speak calmly and slowly, these concerns matter far less. Listeners focus on meaning, not perfection. A calm pace allows you to choose words more carefully and reduces mistakes. Simplicity, delivered calmly, sounds confident. Complexity, delivered nervously, sounds uncertain. Calm authority also changes how others respond to you. When you speak calmly, people are less likely to interrupt. They listen more closely. They mirror your tone. Conversations become more balanced. This creates a positive feedback loop. Your calmness influences the room, and the room reinforces your authority. One important mindset shift is understanding that you don't need to fill every silence. Silence is not a threat. When you speak calmly, you can allow pauses without discomfort. These pauses give your words emphasis and show that you are not in a hurry to be validated. Silence, combined with calm delivery, amplifies authority. Developing calm authority takes practice. Start by becoming aware of your pace. Notice when you rush. Slow down intentionally, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Practice speaking slightly slower than feels natural. To the listener, it will sound clear and confident. To you, it may feel slow, but that's where authority lives. Another practice is emotional labeling before speaking. If you feel nervous, acknowledge it internally. If you feel frustrated, recognize it. Naming the emotion reduces its control over your voice. Once emotions are acknowledged, you can choose how to speak instead of reacting automatically. Calm authority is not about changing who you are. It's about refining how you show up. It's the difference between reacting and responding, between noise and clarity, between trying to be heard and expecting to be heard. As you continue through this audiobook, remember this principle. People don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the calmest one. Calm communication signals confidence, control, and credibility, all essential ingredients of influence. In the next chapter, we will sharpen this authority even further by removing weak language and replacing it with precise words that strengthen every message you deliver.
Chapter 3. Cut the fluff. Use precise language. Authority weakens when language becomes uncertain. Many people don't lose influence because their ideas are bad, but because their words are soft. They dilute their message without realizing it. Small phrases, added out of habit or insecurity, quietly undermine credibility. This chapter is about removing those phrases and replacing them with language that sounds clear, intentional, and confident. Fluff often appears when people are trying to be polite, cautious, or likable. Phrases like maybe, I think, I guess, kind of, or just seem harmless, but they send a powerful signal: uncertainty. When listeners hear these words, they subconsciously question the speaker's confidence. Even when the idea itself is strong, the delivery weakens it. Precise language does not mean harsh language. It means choosing words that accurately represent your intention. You can be respectful without being vague. You can be confident without being aggressive. Precision is about clarity, not dominance. One of the most common habits that weaken authority is overqualifying statements. People add disclaimers before they speak as if asking permission to share an idea. This might be wrong, but, or I'm not an expert, but, immediately reduce the weight of what follows. If you truly lack information, it's better to be honest later. But if you believe in your point, don't weaken it before it begins. Another form of fluff is unnecessary explanation. People often feel the need to justify their ideas in advance. They add background, side stories, and extra details before reaching the point.
This creates confusion and fatigue for the listener. Strong communicators lead with the point, then explain only what is necessary. Precision requires discipline. It forces you to decide what matters most. Instead of saying everything you know, you say what the listener needs. This makes your communication efficient and respectful of time. Weak language also appears in endings. Many people trail off at the end of sentences, turning statements into questions. This rising tone suggests doubt, even when the words themselves are firm. Ending sentences clearly and decisively changes how your message is perceived. A statement should sound like a statement. This is especially important in English. Because English is not your first language, you may feel tempted to soften statements to avoid sounding rude. But clarity is not rudeness. In professional and leadership contexts, direct language is often appreciated. It saves time and prevents misunderstanding. Precise language also means using active voice instead of passive voice. Passive constructions hide responsibility and weaken impact. The task was delayed sounds vague. The task was delayed because the data was incomplete is clearer. Even better is taking ownership when appropriate. Clear responsibility builds trust. Another subtle form of fluff is filler words. Words like you know, and like break the flow of your speech. They signal nervousness and distract the listener. These words often appear when you haven't fully thought through your message. Pausing silently is far more powerful than filling space with noise. Silence sounds confident. Fillers sound uncertain. Removing fluff doesn't mean speaking less, it means speaking better. Every word should earn its place. This doesn't require memorization or perfection, it requires awareness. Start noticing the words you use when you feel unsure. These are usually the words that need to go. One effective practice is replacement. Instead of saying, "I think we should," try, "I recommend we." Instead of, "maybe we can," say, "we can." Instead of, "just checking," say, "I'm following up." These small changes dramatically shift how your message feels. Precision also improves listening. When you speak clearly, others respond more clearly. Conversations become shorter, more focused, and more productive. You spend less time correcting misunderstandings and more time making progress. There is also a psychological shift that happens when you use precise language. You begin to trust yourself more. Speaking with certainty reinforces internal confidence. Over time, your mind adjusts to the language you use. Confidence becomes not just something you project, but something you feel. For non-native English speakers, precision simplifies communication. You don't need long sentences or advanced vocabulary. Simple, direct sentences are easier to deliver and easier to understand. Complexity often creates mistakes. Simplicity creates strength. Another benefit of cutting fluff is reduced anxiety. When you know exactly what you want to say, you don't worry about how it will sound. You stop overthinking reactions. Clear language leaves little room for misinterpretation, which reduces fear. Precision also protects your credibility. Once people see that your words are reliable, they listen more closely. They stop questioning your intent. They trust your direction. This is how authority is built, quietly, consistently, through disciplined language. Of course, precision must be balanced with empathy. Authority without awareness becomes arrogance. Clear language should still consider the context, the audience, and the relationship. Precision is not about being blunt, it's about being intentional. As you continue practicing this skill, don't try to change everything at once. Start with awareness. Notice one or two phrases you overuse. Replace them intentionally. Over time, your communication will naturally become more sharp and more confident. Remember this principle. If your idea is worth saying, it is worth saying clearly. Removing fluff doesn't make you cold, it makes you credible. In the next chapter, we will build on this clarity by learning how to structure your message so people not only understand you, but know exactly what to do next. Chapter 4. Structure your message. Point, support, next step. Clarity does not come from speaking longer. It comes from speaking in order. One of the fastest ways to lose authority is to ramble, jumping from idea to idea, adding details without direction, and hoping the listener will figure out the point. Strong communicators don't leave clarity to chance. They structure their message so the listener always knows what matters, why it matters, and what should happen next. Structure is the invisible framework behind powerful communication. When people struggle to follow your message, it is rarely because they are distracted or uninterested. It is usually because the message lacks a clear path. Without structure, even good ideas feel confusing. With structure, even simple ideas feel powerful. A practical and effective structure you can use in almost any situation is this: point, support, next step. The point is your main idea. It is the one thing you want the listener to remember if they forget everything else. This should be stated early and clearly. Do not hide it. Do not build up to it slowly. Leading with your point shows confidence and respect for the listener's time. It tells them exactly why they should pay attention. Many people delay the point because they are afraid of being challenged. They explain first, hoping to protect the idea. But strong communicators do the opposite. They trust their point enough to say it up front. Once the point is clear, you move to support. Support explains why your point makes sense. This can be a reason, an example, a fact, or a short explanation. Support gives credibility to your point without overwhelming the listener. The key here is relevance. Only include support that directly strengthens your main idea. Extra details weaken focus. Support is not about proving intelligence. It's about making understanding easy. One or two strong supporting elements are usually enough. Too much support creates noise. Too little creates doubt. Balance is essential. The final element is the next step. This is where many communicators fail. They deliver information but leave the listener unsure of what to do with it. Influence requires direction. The next step answers the question, what should happen now? It could be a decision, an action, or simply awareness. Clear direction turns communication into progress. When you include a next step, you move from talking to leading. This structure works in meetings, presentations, emails, and even casual conversations. For example, instead of explaining a problem for several minutes, you could say, "The main issue is delayed approvals. This is happening because requests are not clearly documented. The next step is to standardize the request format starting this week. Clear, focused, actionable." Structure also reduces anxiety for the speaker. When you know the path of your message, you don't worry about forgetting what to say. You move from one section to the next with confidence. This is especially helpful for non-native English speakers. Structure reduces mental load. You don't need perfect language, you need a clear order. Another advantage of structure is that it keeps you from over-explaining. Once your point is supported and a next step is given, you can stop. Silence after a clear message feels confident. Continuing to talk often weakens impact. Listeners also appreciate structured communication because it makes listening easier. They don't have to guess what matters. They can relax and focus. This builds trust and increases influence over time. Structure is also a sign of leadership. Leaders think in outcomes, not just ideas. They don't share information without purpose. Every message is connected to a decision or action. This mindset separates influential communicators from those who simply talk. One common mistake is mixing the structure. People jump to details before stating the point. Others give a point and support but forget the next step. Being aware of the structure helps you self-correct in real time. If you notice yourself drifting, you can pause and return to the framework. Structure does not make you sound robotic. In fact, it makes you sound more natural. When thoughts are organized, delivery becomes smoother. You don't repeat yourself. You don't circle back unnecessarily. You move forward with intention. Over time, this structure becomes instinctive. You won't need to think about it consciously. Your mind will naturally organize ideas this way before you speak. This is when communication becomes effortless and authoritative. Structure also protects your message from misinterpretation. When people know your point and the next step, there is less room for assumption. This reduces conflict and increases alignment. As you practice this skill, start small. In your next conversation, consciously state your point early. Provide one clear reason. End with a direction or conclusion. Notice how people respond. You'll likely find that conversations become shorter, clearer, and more productive. Remember, influence is not about impressing people with how much you know. It's about guiding them toward understanding and action. Structure is the bridge between your ideas and their impact. In the next chapter, we will explore how silence, when used intentionally, can strengthen this structure even further and elevate your authority without adding a single extra word.
Chapter 5. Use the power of silence. Silence is one of the most misunderstood tools in communication. Many people see it as a weakness, a sign of uncertainty, or a moment to be avoided at all costs. They rush to fill gaps with words, explanations, or nervous sounds. But in reality, silence, when used intentionally, is one of the strongest signals of confidence and authority you can project. Powerful communicators are not afraid of silence. They understand that silence is not emptiness. It is space, and space gives meaning to words. When you speak without pause, your message becomes crowded. Ideas blur together, and nothing stands out. Silence creates contrast. It allows important points to land. It gives listeners time to process what you've said. Without silence, even the strongest message can feel rushed and forgettable. One of the most effective uses of silence is before speaking. A brief pause before responding shows that you are thinking, not reacting. It signals control. People often interpret this pause as confidence and intelligence, even if it lasts only a second or two. That small moment of stillness tells the listener that what follows is considered and intentional. Silence is equally powerful after speaking. When you finish a key point and stop talking, it gives your words weight. Many people ruin strong statements by continuing to talk, adding unnecessary explanations out of discomfort. This weakens the impact. Ending with silence allows the message to stand on its own. In conversations, silence shifts control. The person who is comfortable with silence often leads the interaction. When you don't rush to fill every gap, others feel the pressure to respond. This is not manipulation, it's presence. Calm, silent presence creates authority without effort. Silence also improves listening. When you are not focused on filling space, you can fully hear what others are saying. This makes your responses more relevant and thoughtful. People feel understood when you give them space to speak, and that understanding builds trust. Many people fear silence because it exposes internal discomfort. Silence forces you to sit with your thoughts, but this discomfort fades with practice. Over time, silence becomes familiar and even empowering. You begin to realize that nothing bad happens when you stop talking. In fact, conversations often improve.
For non-native English speakers, silence is especially valuable. It gives you time to choose the right words. Instead of panicking and rushing, you can pause, think, and respond clearly. Listeners rarely judge pauses negatively. Most people prefer a short pause over unclear speech. Silence also reduces mistakes. When you slow down, you speak with more precision. You avoid filler words like or you know. These fillers weaken authority. Silence, on the other hand, sounds deliberate and composed. Another powerful use of silence is during disagreement. When someone challenges you or expresses strong emotion, responding immediately can escalate the situation. A pause creates emotional distance. It allows tension to settle. Your calm silence often encourages the other person to reflect on their own words. Silence can also signal boundaries. When you don't respond immediately to pressure, interruptions, or provocation, you communicate that you are not easily controlled. This earns respect. You choose when and how to engage. In presentations or meetings, silence can be used to emphasize key points. After stating an important idea, pause. Look around the room. Let the message sink in. This technique is used by skilled speakers because it draws attention without effort. Silence also increases credibility. People associate thoughtful pauses with careful thinking. Rapid, non-stop speech can feel impulsive. Measured speech with intentional pauses feels trustworthy. It's important to understand that silence is not passive. It is active control. You are not withdrawing, you are directing the rhythm of the conversation. You decide when to speak and when to stop. To practice this skill, start by becoming aware of your discomfort with silence. Notice when you feel the urge to speak just to fill space. Resist it. Pause instead. At first, this may feel awkward, but with repetition, it becomes natural. Another practice is intentional pausing. In your next conversation, insert a brief pause before answering a question. Even 1 second is enough. Observe how the interaction changes. You may notice that people listen more closely and respond more thoughtfully. Silence also allows confidence to show through your body language. When you are not talking, your posture, eye contact, and presence communicate just as much as words. Calm stillness reinforces authority. As with all communication tools, silence must be used with awareness. Too much silence can feel disengaged. The goal is balance. Use silence to enhance clarity, not to avoid participation. Remember this: words create meaning, but silence gives them power. When you learn to be comfortable with silence, you stop chasing attention. You allow attention to come to you. In the next chapter, we will explore how to read the room, how to adjust your tone, pace, and message based on the people around you, so your communication remains effective in any situation.
Chapter 6. Read the room. Great communication is not just about what you say, it's about who you're saying it to, when you're saying it, and how the message fits the moment. Many people deliver clear, well-structured messages and still fail to influence because they ignore the environment around them. Reading the room is the skill that turns good communication into effective communication. Reading the room means paying attention to people, not just ideas. Every room has energy. Sometimes it's focused, sometimes it's tense, sometimes it's tired, distracted, or resistant. If you speak without noticing this, your message may clash with the moment. When communication clashes with energy, influence drops. When communication adapts, influence grows. The first step in reading the room is observation. Before you speak, notice body language. Are people leaning in or leaning back? Are they making eye contact or looking away? Are they still or restless? These signals tell you how open the room is to information, discussion, or decision-making.
tone is your first adjustment tool. If the room feels tense, a calm and steady tone helps lower emotional intensity. If the room feels flat or disengaged, slightly more energy can bring focus back. Matching and gently guiding the emotional level of the room is more effective than forcing your own tone onto it. Pace also matters. In a fast-moving environment, overly slow speech may feel disconnected. In a serious or emotional moment, fast speech may feel insensitive. Reading the room allows you to adjust speed so your message feels appropriate rather than intrusive. Volume is another signal of awareness. Speaking louder than necessary can feel aggressive. Speaking too softly can feel uncertain. The right volume depends on the space and the people. Adjusting volume shows social intelligence and respect. Reading the room also means understanding roles and relationships. A message delivered to peers may need a different tone than the same message delivered to senior leaders. Authority is not fixed, it is contextual. Skilled communicators adapt without losing confidence. Listening is central to reading the room, not just listening to words, but listening to how things are said. Hesitation, defensiveness, excitement, or resistance all show up in voice and behavior. When you notice these cues, you can adjust your message in real time. This adjustment might mean simplifying. If people look confused, reduce complexity. If they seem overwhelmed, shorten your message. If they are engaged, you can go deeper. Flexibility is a strength, not a weakness. One common mistake is over-delivering information when the room is not ready. More words do not create clarity if attention is low. Sometimes the most effective move is to pause, summarize, or postpone. Knowing when not to speak is part of reading the room. For non-native English speakers, reading the room helps compensate for language limitations. You don't need perfect phrasing if your timing and awareness are strong. People are forgiving of minor language errors when they feel understood and respected. Another aspect of reading the room is recognizing resistance. Resistance doesn't always show up as disagreement. It can appear as silence, crossed arms, or lack of response. When you sense resistance, pushing harder often backfires. Instead, acknowledge the tension or ask a clarifying question. This shows emotional intelligence and builds trust. Reading the room also helps you choose the right level of detail. Technical details may be appreciated by some audiences and ignored by others. Tailoring depth shows respect for the listener's perspective. It's important to note that reading the room is not about pleasing everyone, it's about being effective. You may still need to deliver difficult messages. The difference is how you deliver them. Awareness allows you to be firm without being careless. This skill improves with practice and reflection. After conversations, ask yourself, did I notice the room's energy? Did I adjust my tone? Did I speak too much or too little? Reflection sharpens awareness. Reading the room also requires humility. It means accepting that your message is not the only thing that matters. Context matters. People matter. When you prioritize understanding over expression, your influence increases naturally. One powerful habit is to begin conversations with a brief check-in. A simple observation or question can reveal the room's state. This allows you to adjust before diving into content. As you develop this skill, you'll notice a shift. Conversations become smoother, resistance decreases, people respond more openly. This is because they feel seen, not talked at. Reading the room is the bridge between clarity and connection. Without it, communication feels mechanical. With it, communication feels human. In the next chapter, we will explore how honesty, especially admitting what you don't know, can strengthen authority rather than weaken it, and why transparency is a cornerstone of trust and influence.
Chapter 7. Be honest. Trust is built on transparency. Many people believe authority comes from always having an answer. They think that confidence means certainty at all times, and that admitting uncertainty will weaken their position. In reality, the opposite is true. Real authority is built on honesty. Trust grows when people sense that your words are genuine, not performed. Honesty in communication is not about sharing everything you think. It's about being truthful, clear, and aligned with reality. When your words match what you know and what you don't know, people feel safe trusting you. One of the strongest statements you can make is, "I don't know." Used appropriately, this phrase does not reduce credibility, it increases it. It signals self-awareness, maturity, and integrity. People are far more likely to trust someone who admits limits than someone who pretends to be certain and later proves unreliable. Faking confidence creates long-term damage. You may sound convincing in the moment, but once inconsistencies appear, trust collapses. Honesty protects your credibility over time. Influence is not built in a single conversation, it is built through consistency. Honest communicators do not exaggerate. They do not oversell ideas or promise outcomes they can't control. They speak accurately, even when accuracy is less impressive. This reliability makes their words valuable. When they do speak confidently, people listen because their confidence is earned. Transparency also applies to intentions. When people understand why you are saying something, they are more open to hearing it. Hidden motives create suspicion. Clear intentions create cooperation. You don't need to reveal everything, but clarity about purpose builds trust. Another key aspect of honesty is clarity around uncertainty. Instead of pretending to know, skilled communicators explain what is known, what is unknown, and what will be done next. This structure reassures listeners and maintains authority even in uncertain situations. Honesty also requires emotional awareness. If you feel unsure, defensive, or pressured, acknowledging that internally helps you respond calmly. Suppressing emotions often leads to overcompensation, which sounds artificial. Honest communication feels grounded because it accepts reality rather than resisting it. For non-native English speakers, honesty reduces pressure. You don't need to hide your limitations. You can speak clearly within your ability. Listeners care more about understanding than perfection. When you are honest about language limitations, people become more patient and supportive. Honesty does not mean lack of confidence. It means confidence without deception. You can say, "This is my current understanding," or "based on the information we have now." These statements are honest and professional. They show thoughtfulness, not weakness. Trust is also built through consistency between words and actions. Honest communicators follow through. If they say they will do something, they do it, or they explain why they can't. Broken promises damage credibility more than silence ever could. Another important element is admitting mistakes. Mistakes are unavoidable. How you handle them defines your authority. Honest acknowledgement followed by correction builds more trust than denial or excuses. People respect accountability. Honesty also improves collaboration. When people trust your words, they share more openly. Conversations become productive instead of defensive. Influence grows naturally in environments where honesty is valued. It's important to understand that honesty does not require oversharing. Professional honesty is about relevance. Share what matters to the conversation. Protect privacy and boundaries. Authority comes from balance, not exposure. One of the biggest barriers to honesty is fear. Fear of judgment, fear of appearing weak, fear of losing control. But control gained through deception is fragile. Control gained through trust is stable. Honesty also allows you to say no. Saying no clearly and respectfully builds authority.
Overcommitting and underdelivering destroys trust. Honest limits protect relationships. As you practice honest communication, you may notice a shift in how people respond. They ask for your input more often. They value your opinion. This is because your words become reliable signals, not noise. Honesty also reduces internal tension. When you no longer have to maintain an image, communication becomes easier. You stop performing and start connecting. This ease is felt by others and interpreted as confidence. In the long run, influence is not about controlling perception, it's about building belief. People believe those who speak truthfully, even when the truth is incomplete or uncomfortable. As we move forward, remember this principle. Credibility is not created by knowing everything. It is created by being honest about what you know. In the next chapter, we will bring these skills together by focusing on how to sound confident in English, even with simple vocabulary, and how clarity, structure, and honesty combine to create powerful communication across language barriers.
Chapter 8. Authority in English. Confidence without complexity. Many people believe that speaking English with authority requires advanced vocabulary, perfect grammar, or a native accent. This belief creates unnecessary pressure and holds countless people back from speaking up. The truth is far simpler and far more empowering. Authority in English comes from clarity, intention, and delivery, not from complexity. Simple English, used well, is powerful. Listeners do not measure confidence by how difficult your words are. They measure it by how clear your message feels. A short, direct sentence spoken calmly has more authority than a long, complicated sentence delivered with hesitation. When you focus on being understood instead of sounding impressive, your confidence increases naturally. One of the biggest mistakes non-native English speakers make is trying to translate thoughts directly from their native language. This often leads to long sentences, unnatural phrasing, and confusion. Authority improves when you simplify your thinking before you speak. Think in ideas, not sentences. Decide the point first, then express it using the simplest words available. Clear structure matters more than perfect grammar. If your message has a clear beginning, middle, and end, listeners will follow you, even if your grammar is not perfect. People remember meaning, not mistakes. Confidence grows when you realize that communication is about connection, not performance. Pronunciation is another area where people lose confidence. They worry about accents or mispronouncing words. But accents do not reduce authority. Uncertainty does. Speaking slowly and clearly, even with an accent, sounds confident. Rushing through words to hide an accent makes speech harder to understand and weakens authority. Pausing is especially important in English communication. Pauses give you time to think and choose words carefully. They also make your speech sound deliberate. Silence between sentences feels confident in English. It signals control and intention. Vocabulary choice also plays a role. Instead of searching for advanced words, choose precise, common words. Important is often better than significant. Help is clearer than facilitate. Simple words are easier to pronounce and easier to understand. Precision beats complexity every time. Another powerful habit is repetition. Repeating key points reinforces clarity. Native speakers do this constantly. Repetition does not sound weak, it sounds intentional. If a point matters, it deserves to be heard more than once. Confidence in English also comes from accepting mistakes. Mistakes are not a sign of failure, they are part of communication. When you stop fearing mistakes, you speak more freely. Freedom creates flow. Flow creates confidence. Self-correction, when done calmly, does not weaken authority.
Briefly correcting a word and continuing shows awareness and control. Apologizing excessively for mistakes, however, shifts focus away from your message. Correct, then move on. Listening plays a critical role in authority in English. The more you listen, the better you respond. Listening reduces pressure to speak perfectly because you are focused on understanding, not impressing. Good listeners sound confident because their responses are relevant and thoughtful. Another key to authority in English is consistency. Speaking regularly builds comfort. Confidence is not built by waiting until you feel ready. It is built by practicing while feeling uncertain. Each conversation strengthens familiarity and reduces fear. Mindset matters deeply here. Stop comparing yourself to native speakers. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Authority is personal. Progress is personal. When you focus on growth, confidence follows. One effective strategy is preparing phrases instead of sentences. Common professional phrases can be reused in many situations. This reduces cognitive load and increases fluency. Prepared phrases act as anchors in conversation. Authority also increases when you accept your pace. You do not need to speak as fast as native speakers. A slightly slower pace often sounds clearer and more confident. Speed does not equal fluency. Control does. Body language supports authority in English communication. Calm posture, steady eye contact, and relaxed movement reinforce confidence. Even when words feel uncertain, body language can carry authority. Over time, confidence in English becomes a habit. You stop overthinking. You trust your ability to communicate. This trust is felt by others. Remember, authority is not about speaking like a native. It is about being understood, respected, and trusted. Simple English delivered with clarity and calm achieves all three. In the next chapter, we will explore how influence becomes a habit, how repeating these communication principles daily transforms not just how you speak, but how people respond to you over time. Chapter 9. Influence is a habit. Influence is often misunderstood as a natural talent. People assume that some are born persuasive, confident, and authoritative, while others are not. In reality, influence is not a gift, it is a habit. It is built through repeated, intentional behavior over time. The way you think, speak, listen, and respond every day quietly shapes how people perceive you. Habits create reputation. Every conversation is a small signal. One conversation does not define you, but patterns do. When you consistently speak with clarity, calm, and honesty, people begin to expect it from you. Your presence becomes predictable in a positive way. Predictability builds trust, and trust is the foundation of influence. Influential people do not wait for important moments to communicate well. They practice influence in ordinary moments. They think before speaking in casual conversations. They speak calmly even when the stakes are low. They structure messages even when the audience is small. These small repetitions strengthen the habit. Influence grows when communication becomes intentional rather than reactive. Many people speak based on mood, emotion, or impulse. Influential communicators speak based on purpose. They choose how to respond instead of letting circumstances decide for them. This self-control compounds over time. Habits remove the need for confidence. When something becomes habitual, it requires less effort and less courage. You don't need to feel confident to act confidently. You rely on your habits. This is why disciplined communication outperforms motivation. Motivation fades, habits remain. One of the most important habits is consistency in tone. When people know what to expect from your communication style, they feel safe engaging with you. Safety increases openness. Openness increases influence. Another key habit is preparation. Influential communicators prepare mentally before conversations. They clarify their point, anticipate questions, and decide on a next step. This preparation does not take long, but it makes communication smoother and more effective. Listening is also a habit. Many people listen only when it benefits them. Influential people listen consistently. They make others feel heard, which increases willingness to listen in return. Influence is reciprocal. Reflection strengthens habits. After conversations, influential communicators reflect. They ask what worked, what didn't, and what could improve. Reflection turns experience into learning. Learning turns effort into progress. Habits also protect influence under pressure. When stress increases, people default to habits. If your habit is panic or defensiveness, influence disappears. If your habit is calm, clarity, and honesty, influence remains, even in difficult moments. Another habit is restraint. Influential people do not speak just because they can. They choose when to speak and when to stay silent. This selectiveness makes their words more valuable. Consistency in honesty is also crucial. Trust grows slowly and disappears quickly. Being honest in small matters builds credibility for larger ones. Influence earned through honesty lasts longer than influence gained through performance. For non-native English speakers, habit matters more than talent. Regular use of clear, simple English builds confidence over time. Authority grows through repetition, not perfection. Influence also becomes a habit when you align communication with values. When your words reflect your values consistently, people sense authenticity. Authenticity strengthens influence. Another powerful habit is patience. Influence is not immediate. People may not respond right away. Habits require time to be noticed. Trust requires time to form. Patience allows influence to mature. One mistake many people make is changing their communication style only when they want something. This inconsistency weakens influence. True influence is steady. It does not turn on and off. Habits also reduce fear. When communication becomes routine, anxiety decreases. You stop overthinking. You stop rehearsing excessively. You rely on your practiced behavior. To build influence as a habit, start small. Choose one principle from this audiobook and apply it daily. Practice thinking before speaking. Practice calm delivery. Practice structured messages. Over time, these practices merge into a natural style. Remember, people don't trust occasional confidence. They trust consistent behavior. Influence grows quietly through daily repetition. In the final chapter, we will bring everything together by showing how these habits transform you into the kind of person people naturally listen to, without force, without noise, and without effort.
Chapter 10. Becoming the person people listen to. Becoming someone people listen to is not about commanding attention, it is about earning it. True influence does not demand silence from others, it creates it naturally. When people listen to you, it is because your presence signals clarity, calm, and value. This chapter brings together everything you have learned and shows how these skills combine to shape not just how you speak, but who you become. People listen to those who respect their time. When you think before you speak, structure your message, and cut unnecessary words, you show respect. You don't waste attention, you honor it. Over time, this builds a reputation for clarity. People begin to lean in when you speak because they expect efficiency, not noise. Listening also comes from emotional safety. Calm communicators create environments where others feel steady. Your tone, pace, and pauses signal that you are not reactive or volatile.
This steadiness makes people more open. They don't brace themselves, they listen. Consistency is critical. One clear conversation is not enough. When people repeatedly experience your clarity and composure, their perception of you changes. You become reliable. Reliability creates influence. People also listen to those who are honest. When your words align with reality, trust forms. Trust is the currency of influence. Without it, even strong messages fail. With it, even simple statements carry weight. Becoming influential also means letting go of the need to be impressive. Influence grows when you focus on being useful. Useful communication solves problems, creates understanding, and moves things forward. Impressing creates distance. Usefulness creates connection. Another trait of people who are listened to is restraint. They don't dominate conversations. They choose moments wisely. This selectiveness makes their contributions more valuable. Scarcity increases attention. Authority also comes from self-awareness. Knowing your strengths and limits allows you to communicate with confidence without arrogance. Admitting uncertainty when appropriate strengthens credibility. For non-native English speakers, influence comes from clarity and courage. Speaking up, even imperfectly, builds presence. Over time, fluency improves, but influence begins with intention. Becoming someone people listen to is not about changing your personality, it is about refining how you express it. Quiet people can be influential, loud people can lack influence. Volume is not power, control is. Influence also requires patience. People may not immediately respond differently, but consistency reshapes perception. Over time, your calm presence becomes associated with value. The final shift is internal. When you stop chasing attention, you start attracting it. When you trust your process, confidence becomes natural. When you speak less but say more, people listen. This audiobook has shown you that influence is built from simple habits: thinking before speaking, staying calm, choosing precise words, structuring messages, using silence, reading the room, being honest, communicating clearly in English, and practicing these skills daily. None of these require talent. They require intention. As you move forward, remember that every conversation is an opportunity to practice. Influence is not a performance, it is a pattern. Build the pattern, and the influence will follow. In the outro, we will close by reinforcing how speaking with intention transforms not just communication, but confidence, leadership, and opportunity.
Speak less, say more. Influence is not something you turn on when it matters most. It is something you build quietly, every day, through the way you think, speak, and listen. Throughout this audiobook, you have learned that authority does not come from being loud, complex, or dominant. It comes from intention, from calm, from clarity. When you think before you speak, your words gain direction. When you speak calmly, your presence gains weight. When you remove unnecessary language, your message becomes sharp. When you structure what you say, people understand you. When you use silence, people listen. When you read the room and speak honestly, trust grows. And when you practice these habits consistently, influence becomes part of who you are. This transformation does not require changing your personality or mastering perfect English. It requires awareness and discipline. Simple words, used intentionally, will always outperform complex speech filled with uncertainty. Clarity will always beat noise. Remember that communication is not about proving yourself, it is about creating understanding. The more you focus on being useful rather than impressive, the more people will value your voice. As you move forward, treat every conversation as practice. Small moments matter.
Over time, your calm, structured approach will shape how others respond to you. They will listen more closely. They will trust your judgment. They will seek your input. The goal is not to speak more. The goal is to speak with purpose. When you learn to speak less but say more, your influence grows naturally. And when your influence grows, opportunities follow. Thank you for listening. Now take what you've learned and let your words work for you, quietly, confidently, and with intention.